Over to you, Richard.
Good morning and welcome to this short webinar. My name is Richard Ellison and I'll be your moderator today. Over the next 15 minutes, we'll introduce our world-leading skills management solution that we've developed over the past few years. This cloud-based solution directly addresses the recent Gartner commentary that we will, if not already, face a major shortage of the people skills required for digital transformation. We'll do this by first answering two simple questions. What skills do we have and what skills do we need? Then we'll show you how to exploit that data that SkillsTx captures to strengthen and simplify employee engagement, enable accurate and focused employee skills development, and provide insightful analytics to management to address the gap. At the end of the session, we will be answering some common questions asked of us. And for any of you that may have, please use the question feature and we'll address these too. So without further ado, let me introduce two of my colleagues, Paul Collins and Graham Kennedy, who will show you how SkillsTx will help you.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Before we get underway, I'd just like to ask a quick question for those that are online, just to understand what your current challenges are with regard to skill gaps. So I'll just run a very quick poll and we'll see what the answers to that are, and then we'll get into the presentation in detail. So I'm just going to run that now. So just launching. So if you wouldn't mind providing your answers, and then we'll get on with the presentation. You'll see it in the control panel at the top there. Okay, just waiting for one vote to come in. All right, we'll end the polling. There we go. Right, so I'll just share those results with you. Not unexpected, to be honest. So what we can see is that the majority of the people online are either going to face moderate or major impact as a result of skills shortages, and that is what the industry is telling us. So not unusual there. So let's get on and look at how we address that. Okay, so the title of the webinar covered data, employee engagement, and analytics. So what I'm going to do is start with how we can use that data with regard to employee engagement. And to do that, I'm actually going to use my own skill profile. So that's what you can see on the screen right now, obviously based on Sophia. And initially, what we've got is the answer to that first question. What skills do we have, or indeed, as an individual, what skills do I have? And that's presented right in front of me. I went through a self-assessment process, a very structured one, and in my user interface here, I can see all of the skills. And not only do we just measure skills as a binary, do I have it or not, we actually have different graduations. So I can see whether I've fully mastered. Those are the solid boxes. The diagonal lines are where I can largely perform the skill, but still a little bit of experience and knowledge before I'm claiming to be an expert. And then these stripy lines here are a skill from previous in my career that I'd like to use again. So right up front, this is my skill profile. We're very, very keen that we make the point that skills are owned by an individual and they are loaned and rented to your employer. So hence the reason I have an edit button here in order that I can update that as required. So that's one question answered. Already I'm able to engage with this system in order to keep my skill profile up to date and print reports, etc. But the other side of that question is, what skills do we need? So within the system, the organization has loaded up some job definitions into the system. They're aligned with Sophia as well, so they're a Sophia profile. And up here in the top right corner, you can actually see that my current role here, a little bit fictional, is Chief Digital Officer, and I'm a sort of 57% match. And my aspirational role is Chief Information Officer, and I've got some way to go with a 25% match. So I'm already able to see where I am against my job requirement. And within the administration console, we've got many different ways that you can load those skill profiles of job definitions into the system. I hit this show button, it's immediately going to give me a very visual representation of where my skills lie against that particular job requirement. So all the blue boxes you can see on there with the stripes and circles are just indicating required and desirable skills. So that's all very well. So we've got some data. What skills do I have? What skills do I need? And I can do some comparisons. But really, the key to this is addressing that skill gap challenge that we've got. So in order to do that, click over on the action plan. And what I'm going to see here, so down the left-hand side of the screen, all of the skill gaps that relate to my current role. So I've got a very, very visual representation once again with full Sophia descriptions embedded into the system so that I can see clearly that these are my skill gaps, and the little red ticks are indicating I'm already addressing those gaps. Quite often refer to those gaps as sleepless nights, a skill that my job requires that I've not had the opportunity to properly acquire. So it's the type of things that we have to do when we're really not that sure. And now I can see exactly why, you know, every third Tuesday is a bad morning because I'm expected to do some analytics that I've not addressed yet. Over on the right-hand side, again, pure engagement aspect where we're looking at creating, in this case, custom actions to address whatever skill gaps I've got. So generally a conversation with management or leaders, sit down, look at the skill gaps and look at which ones we're going to address, in which order, create custom actions of various types. So we've already defined quite a lot, coaching, etc., and event attendance, you can see there. Up in the top here are the actions that I've already created, some in progress, some to do, so that I can keep a track of it, and we've obviously got target dates. The system will notify me. Again, it will engage with me, if you like, in order that I can keep up to date with that action plan. So we're basically changing this annual appraisal mentality into continual performance or continual professional development. The other thing that we've built into the system, again, which is for the organization to be able to get high value and indeed provide employees with internal training courses that actually address skill gaps. So within the system, you can build predefined actions that address particular skills, or indeed you can load in third-party predefined training that has been mapped to Sophia, and the system is automatically telling me which ones are going to be the most valuable in addressing my skill gaps. So when we look at it from the employee point of view, this is my career dashboard. It's purely, you know, dynamic. It's giving me constant reminders in terms of where I'm at against those skill gaps. But the other thing that we mentioned, and we'll go and have a look at this. So we've seen from an individual's point of view, but now let's look at it from the organizational perspective. So I'm going to take some account of employee engagement once again, and we're also going to look at some business risk aspects. So thinking of employees and thinking of that question, what skills do we have? I've just clicked on one of the analytics tabs here called Team Project Builder, and it is showing me the whole workforce with every skill across the workforce. So if, for example, I need to put a team together for an agile project, for example, within that team I need business risk, maybe some conformance review and some data analysis. Up in the top right, it has actually just found all of the people with those skills. So 3 clicks, and I'm immediately able to identify people that have the skills that I need. And of course, allowing people to use the skills that they have, you know, is good for their career and giving them an opportunity to practice what they're good at. So let's look at some business risk now. So what we've got here is a visual representation, in this case, of 3 people that are less than a 25% match against the requirements of their current job. Now, whichever way you look at that, that's certainly a business risk, but it's a pretty bad place for these people to be. It may be that they've been promoted through the system and never had the opportunity to acquire the actual skills that they truly need. So let's focus in and have a look at what will be the person that's most suffering here with 17.5% match. And we can see that it's Carol, and currently her job is a server technician. Okay, so what I'm now going to do, I'm going to go over and look at the exact skill gaps that Carol has that I know that she needs to address in order to be able to perform her role more efficiently. So here is giving me a list of those skill gaps that I can immediately, engage with Carol and address. On the other hand, let's look at from an internal recruitment point of view. It may be that Carol has actually got a job within the system that is more suited to her. So I'm actually going to go back to this force graph. I've selected Carol. I'm going to uncheck all of these other filters. And what the system is going to do, it's actually going to show me all of the jobs that Carol matches that we have in this particular organization. And I can see a sort of thicker line here that's not quite as red. So I'm going to click on that. And what that is now showing me that the best job for Carol at this 37.5% match is actually a network analyst. And amazingly enough, I can actually see that Carol has actually selected that as her future job. So immediately we've identified someone struggling in the current role. We found a job within the system that they're better able to perform. And with that in mind, we've basically done a very quick tour covering off how we can use data for multiple uses for employee engagement down at the employee level, and also how we can aggregate that data and look at it through an analytics optics at the organizational level. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Graham, who's just going to cover off some questions, if we have any, or some common questions that we've been asked previously.
Thanks, Paul. Probably one of the most, and this is one of the most common questions we do get, is that exactly who can see and edit my skills? If the person owns this data, who's able to actually access it, or who can change their skills?
Okay. So, yeah, like you said, very common question there, Graham. So very simple, really. In terms of editing skill profiles, the only person that can edit their self-rated is the person. So we do have some capability for managers to view, but we certainly don't allow them to edit. That's a collaborative exercise. So have you got any more there, Graham?
Yes. One of the questions is because Sophia doesn't really have any technology involved, is there any way for people to register the fact that they use technology and what technology that they do use, like specialist skills?
Absolutely. Yeah, very, very common again. I mean, as we know, Sophia is an agnostic framework. I didn't cover it when I went in here, but I'll just cover it now. We actually allow the organization to create what we call skill attributes, which sits underneath Sophia. So if you can see over here, one of my skills is analytics, and I have selected that my specialism is Power BI. And if I click on there, you'll see there's a few others that the organization recognizes. So that's how we cover that.
We're going to be making, organizations are going to be making some decisions around all this data that we're maintaining. So exactly how reliable is this data going to be? If people are doing self-assessments, they could be exaggerating or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've done, we put a lot of time and effort into the actual structure of the surveys themselves. Very importantly, we've got tutorials and awareness that indicates to people up front, how to go about that self-assessment. And if that still isn't a high enough level of consistency, we have organizations and partners that offer professional services that allow for us to create what we call a validated version of the profile. It's via a discussion. We've got procedures in the system that help that happen. I said, and we've got a whole multitude of partners that are very specialist in that area. So that's how that's normally covered. Okay. So we've sort of covered our time. So just finally, I'll hand back to Richard and he can finish off.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Graham. So thank you for your time this morning. It's short, sharp insight into SkillsTx. If we've tweaked your interest, we'd be more than happy to get you started with a quick discovery call and a free trial, which can last up to 90 days. So just hit the Get Started Now button on our website, or as Paul is showing you, there's a QR code on the screen. And we look forward to talking with you in the future. Thank you very much for joining, and that concludes today's session.
Thanks, Richard.